we got Coach Meadows, offensive line coach at Northern Illinois University, not too far from where I live, actually. So he's pretty close. Coach, thanks for being here.
You bet. Glad I could be here.
I think you're not too far. I live in Plano now. I don't think it's crazy far.
I am about 14 months as an Illinois resident.
Okay.
I know DeKalb and a few others. So you could be right next door and I may not even know.
Well, I grew up by Champaign-Urbana.
Okay, I know where that is.
So I grew up there. I went to Eastern Illinois. I went to a small town high school of like 300 kids. So going to Eastern even was a big jump for me. I'm like, oh, this town's 20,000 people. This is nuts. And then my wife is from the suburbs. She went to York High School in Elmhurst, and she got a job in Naperville in 2018. So happy life, had to move up here.
Wow.
And I was just like you. I moved up here. I was like mind blown of like, what do you mean there's 4-lane roads? What does this mean? Like my country roads, I need my 1-laners. Like I can't handle what's traffic. Traffic was a tractor. Now it's cars. So you said you've only been, in DeKalb for a little bit. How'd you get into coaching? What's your journey? What's it been like to end up at Northern?
But, well, it's a long story, so interrupt me at any point.
Now you're good.
So I grew up in Hot Springs, South Dakota. You talk about small town. My town, when I was 4,523, I have a theory that any town underneath 5,000, people know the exact numbers. Mm-hmm. It's not 4,523 anymore. It's actually gotten less. And actually, I think we may end up going there this weekend for a reunion or something like that. So, but grew up there, and I went to school at South Dakota State, and that's where I got into college coaching. So I wanted to be a high school football coach. And in the state of South Dakota, you had to take a theory of football class. And the theory of football class was taught by the head coach. This would have been the fall of 97. It was taught by the first-year head football coach, John Sigelmeyer, who was there for probably the next dang near 30 years as a head football coach. So I took his class, and it's sometimes you take classes from college coaches at different schools, and it's kind of like show up, you get the grade. That's not the way Stig was. Like he was going to just smash you, and that's what he did. And so we had to turn in a lot of stuff. We had to go to practice. We had to do a whole lot of things. And when I turned it in, I didn't see him for maybe a week or so, and I was walking to the South Dakota State basketball game, and our paths crossed. He says, "You need to come see me." I thought I screwed up, like I cheated or some crap like that. He's like, "No, he's come see me." And then he told me, he's like, "If you really want to learn stuff, you need to be a student coach." And so I started the spring of '98 as a student coach at South Dakota State, and that's where I think what happens with whether you're a high school coach, college coach, pro coach, coaching's coaching, but that's, I think, where I got addicted to coaching. And I think that's what coaching is. It's an addiction. It's not a bad addiction, but it's an addiction.
Right.
And so I got heavily involved with that. And then in 99 and 2000, I was lucky enough to stay on as a graduate assistant there, and then went away for a year. I wanted to be an O-line coach. That's where, as I started getting involved in it, because at first I was student coach of the tight ends. And I say student coach of the tight ends, but my job was to take them from this drill to that drill and do all the video afterwards with the VCRs and stacking VCRs, making cut up. It's like anything I tell young coaches now. It's like, if you do the little things well, they give you more stuff. Mm-hmm. And the more stuff they give you, don't complain about it. It's actually, they're saying that they trust you. And so I went from that to coaching running backs for 2 years. And then I was lucky to get my first job was being the offensive line coach at Wartburg College. And that was 2001. Really good place. Enjoyed my time there. Ended up going from there back to South Dakota State as the O-line coach. And I was at South Dakota State until 2011. We were Division II. We transitioned to FCS. Dual line coach, and then after you stay at a place long enough, they end up giving you different titles. And so at the end, I finished as the offensive coordinator, and really didn't plan on leaving. And we had a phone call in like 2011. See if I get my dates right. December of 2011, from a guy I'd interviewed that wanted me to come be the O-line coach at Florida Atlantic. And that was Brian Wright. Brian Wright is now the head coach at Northern Arizona. Brian's a really good coach. And so I was with Brian. Carl Pliny was our head football coach. And so we went to FAU, and FAU was a a 1-11 really bad team that had been coached and started by a really good head football coach, Howard Schnellenberger. Not enough young coaches know that name, but he was a really good program builder. But at the end, it kind of fell apart. So we came in, and first year really sucked. We went 3-9, and then we went 6-6. But if you Google FAU 2013 and Carl Planey, there's a lot of accusations that got thrown around for off the field. I wasn't involved in that, but I was part of the staff. And anytime the head coach gets fired, usually that means the assistants are looking for a job. And so went to Southern Miss, and the reason I got the job at Southern Miss, that was with Todd Monken, that was early on in Monk's career. That was his first year, and that was our second year at FAU, and we ran the ball for like 300 yards. And that helped me get the interview. And then I was at Southern Miss in 14 and 15. Again, the previous year they'd gone 1-11. We went 3-9, and then we went 9-3, but then lost in the conference championship in our bowl game. Then it was a victim of having success, because in late January, Coach Monk got offered the offensive coordinator job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he left. And then in January, there's not a lot of jobs. And so then I was lucky enough to hook on with a buddy of mine, Jeff Sims, at Garden City Community College. That was 2016. That was probably the hardest year I'd had in coaching, probably the most rewarding year I'd had in coaching, and where I learned the most was the 1 year at JUCO. I had a certain wrong view of junior college before I went into it. And when you go there, you realize that junior college actually saves a lot of kids' lives. I mean, you're there for one of three reasons. Either you screwed up socially, screwed up academically, you're not good enough. And we were really good. We ended up winning the national championship in 2016. I was away from my family that year. They went to live with my folks. And then went to Eastern Michigan in 2017 and 18 with Coach Creighton. They had already went through that process that I had at FAU and at Southern Miss, to where they just went to a bowl game. They lost in a bowl game, but they just went to a bowl game. We had success there. Where I think we went 5-7 and 7-5. Like any coach, you think you should have won more games than what you did. And then I made the first decision to leave without being fired. Well, I guess Garden City, they knew it was going to be a 1 year deal. I went to Kansas. Chip Lindsey was our offensive coordinator at Southern Miss. And Chip had just gotten fired at Auburn, and he got hired at Kansas as the OC. And so I was going to go be his O-line coach with Les Miles as a head coach. And that 2 years in Kansas could probably be about 3 books unto itself. But after about a month, Chip got hired at Troy as a head football coach. And we signed some very unique contracts that the only way you could really get out is if you were a head football coach. And so I ended up staying at Kansas for 2 years. After 2 years, I was asked to leave, and went to go be with Chip for a year at Troy. Chip was calling it, but he gave me the title of coordinator, so my job was to organize it. He called it, and we went 5-7 and got fired again. And so this would have been 2021, and this is right around the time that NIL was becoming big, transfer portal was becoming big. I've got 3 children, ages of 23, 21, and 7. Same mom, all 3, so 21 and 7 difference. And the 7-year-old at that time was 4, and my daughter was graduating high school. And I was like, you know what? This profession has changed too much. I need to get the hell out. Difficult decision, but I ended up getting out for 2 years. I was a business coach in Kansas City for a moving company. Kind of fits for an O-line coach. And did that for a year, and then I got involved in a kind of a tech-ish type startup deal for they would video verify height, weight, speed, everything that coaches don't trust from a college standpoint. But about halfway through that, I realized that, like, when I got out, everybody told me I was stupid to get out. And they were right, and I was wrong. The way I describe it was I was a outdoor cat who grew up in a small town that was brought inside, and outdoor cats don't fit inside. And so I came back, and I got hired at NIU in April of, that would have been March of 2024. But at that time, I was also driving Uber. And so it's when I got involved in the tech type of deal, I got out. And so in between, I was driving Uber. I knew I was going back to coaching. And if it wasn't college, I was going to do high school. I needed to get back in. So Ham actually called me when I had somebody in the car. So I wanted to just throw them out of the car, so I had to drop them off. But 2 reasons I got back in. One was I felt that I'd quit on football. I'd went into the portal myself as a coach instead of trying to fight back. I think it is very difficult to fight back at something that you think needs to be better if you're not involved in it. And so I could sit outside on the sidelines and complain about what I disliked about what had changed in football, or I could try to get back in and fight against it.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part was I thought that college football was putting out a very poor product of young football coaches. And I wanted to be involved in developing not just the players, but if you want a longer lasting impact, you need to start developing young coaches. And that was another big reason I wanted to get back in.
Yeah, you said a lot there. I wrote a lot down because some of it, which is awesome. Some of it resonates with me. Number one, I love how you said a Monken name, because I tell you what, in Illinois, Monkins, like in Charleston, there was Monkins. Then I come up to the suburbs. Todd's brother coaches at a school near here, at a high school. You just can't get rid of them. So I always thought it was funny. I came up to the suburbs. I'm like, what's your last name? Monken? And I was like, do you know Bob Monken in Charleston? Yeah, it's my cousin. That's whatever. And this and that. Yeah, just can't get rid of them.
Lots of coaches with that last name. And I'll admit, like I was not happy when Monk left. I mean, that was a frustrating deal. But I mean, it was maybe I had a question about I was doing some research on people getting to where they're just too comfortable. They get in their comfort zone. And I called Monk up about it. And we were on talking maybe about a month ago at 5:30 in the morning. And so he's still a resource for me. And any of my ill will towards him has since passed. He's a hell of a coach.
Yeah, they all are. Every one of them. Even if it's not football, I know some that coach other sports. They just coach. And the one I knew in Charleston was a head coach at Charleston High School in Illinois. He was still around, and I'd see him once in a while. I never met him, but once in a while, like, you coach at the high school, and he would just want to talk about what you're. And it's not just old school football; like they knew new school football. It wasn't what they did in the 70s, 80s. It was like right now, like, oh, inside zone, yeah, do this, this, and this, or this, or that. And I'm like, didn't you guys run like wing T? He goes, yeah, but I know what I'm talking about. And then his son's up here, like, I just can't get rid of him. Why did O-line coaching like draw you in? You said that's what you wanted to do. What made you want to do that?
So my degree, actually my first start to coaching was Little League 1993, maybe 1992. So I was a summer rec coach for 7 years, dealing with kids between the ages of swimming lessons to baseball to basketball, from kids from the ages of 4 to 12. And I loved it because I thought that and my degree is in education. And I thought that there was so much where you had to teach at a different level and try to find everybody learns different. And so Coach Hammock talks about you learn the learner so that you can get something out of them. And I thought that offensive line, there was the most teaching that went on with any other position that there was on the football field. And everybody will battle about it, and they'll argue about it. But then they can say quarterback, but quarterbacks don't necessarily have to get punched in the face and punch somebody in the face at the same time. It was the balance of the intelligence and the things you had to teach with the aggression is at the same time. I mean, you talk to NFL guys that play O-line, they say, yeah, I didn't really figure out what the hell I was doing until maybe my 8th year in the league. Because the amount of information that you can learn at the position is immense. I mean, it's almost never ending. And then it's a matter of how you can take that, you got the information, but then do you have the pedagogy to be able to teach it to the person at the same time?
Right.
And that was a cool thing for me. Is there's a lot of people that are college football coaches that never got their degree in education. And that's why I think some of the best coaches out there are high school coaches, because a lot of them got their degree in education. So they know content and they know pedagogy and how to teach it. There's a lot of people that know content but have no idea how to be able to teach it. But with offensive line, it was so broad and there were so many topics. It's like, if I was going to be like most coaches, I got my degree in social science. But if I was going to teach U.S. history, 1885 to present, well, that's the same thing. There's only so much history, but with offensive line, it's big. It was challenging, and I think it was a challenge for me. And the other part was, as I got further into it, is that when you're dealing with people, it is the most normal human beings that you can deal with on a football team as offensive linemen. You don't have to worry about drama. You don't have to worry. If you do worry about drama, then it's probably on you that you created the wrong culture, but you're dealing with a different type of person maybe than what you're dealing with at the other spots. And it's not that those other spots are bad people. It's just I would rather deal with more normal people, or maybe that makes it a little bit easier.
Right, because when I started coaching, it was O-line, D-line. But then a head coach I went to go work for said, all right, that's cool. You're going to do running backs, linebackers, and stuff like that. And I said, why? He goes, if you want to be an OC, DC head coach, you've got to understand how all positions work. He goes, you can get back to it, but just do this first. So I did all the other positions. When we moved up to the suburbs, I knew nobody. I knew everybody in Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, their mothers, their fathers. I could find a job. Up here in the suburbs, I was nobody. So in order to get a spot, they said, oh, you coached O-line? We need an O-line coach. Like, here you go. Next school, oh, I need a true O-line coach. And the word true O-line coach kept coming up. And I said, why does this true keep coming up? And they said, well, sometimes we just throw a coach there. And I'm like, well, this is an important position. You're just throwing coaches there. I started to realize there's less coaches out there now than there used to be. Mm-hmm. But then for football specifically, it was hard to find people that wanted to do O-line. So I was like, I fed into it. I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to get jobs. And then where I'm at now, where I've been going into my 6th year here at the school, I was an O-line coach the last 5 years. And now I just became the offense coordinator. Now I have to do quarterbacks. And so it's a big shift. And I just kept, we got to find an O-line coach, because if not, I'm going to do it. And the head coach like, why do people not want to do it? And I said, because I have to watch 5 guys do something all at one time. And like you said, maybe your right tackle can be taught a certain way, but maybe the right guard can't do those specific things you're asking. Mm-hmm. So you have to tweak it. So now I'm watching the right tackle do a certain technique for the same run block as the right guard, but I have to be able to see it very quickly. And I got to watch all 5 at one time. And then if you had a tight end and a fullback wing in there, now I got to watch all of that at one time. And so when that happened, I started doing quarterbacks. I'm like, man, this is pretty easy. I'm sitting back there at the quarterback. I'm like, it's pretty. I've done quarterbacks one other time and I got bored, but now I'm like, this is pretty easy. Like, hey, go warm up, throwing the ball. Hey, let's go do handoffs. But I'm like, this is easy. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy. Except I can't do my whole line language with the quarterback. I'll be saying something. They'll be like, what is your problem? And I'm like, I said, the big boys down there would know what I'm talking about.
What? I would equate that when I got out of coaching and I was a business coach. I think it would be like coaching certain skill positions, to where if there was a lineman or generally a football player and I wanted him to go from point A to point B, there are certain words I could use in about 5 seconds and he would move. In the business world, or maybe with skill positions, it becomes a word soup of about 3 minutes. Say, like, I really wish you could help me understand why you can't do this. So it's, I think I know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about the skill positions.
Yeah, I had coached them before, but I was young, and you're just doing different things. You're fine. Now I'm a little bit older. But I will say this, I was an OC before. This is my second go around. Getting back to coaching O-line helped me simplify things. So like with the quarterback, like his throwing motion, he's like, why can't I do this? I'm like, it's super easy. Snap your wrist. And we snap his wrist as he throws. Now it's a perfect spiral. And I'm like, oh, see how easy that was? We have to do all this other stuff. Boom, there you go. With the receivers, how they break on the routes, I make it super easy. And I told them how to break it. And they're like, oh, don't do the dancing. We're not in the NFL. We're not doing this. Like, come on. And they're like, oh, this is actually okay. And I'm like, I think coaching O-line made this easier, because when I was younger, it was, like you said, tough. You're dealing with, I want the ball. What about this route? Oh, he's holding me. He's doing this. He's doing that. Now I'm like, if they say that, I'm like, I really don't care if they're holding you. Like, oh, same with O-line. They're holding me. I don't care. It's simple as that. I do not care. And so it's going to be interesting how I handle receivers and quarterbacks. Running backs are fine. They're tough. They work well with the O-line. But the other guys, I'm like, oh. And I'm already not bored. But I'm like, when do we start hitting people? I'm like, wait a minute, you're the quarterback receiver. Well, okay, never mind. Yeah. When do we do board drills? You said that you wanted to make sure that younger coaches become better coaches. what made you want to do that? Is it because the profession? Is it, you want to make sure things are left better than what you found it? I'm in the same type of boat. I want to make sure that I'm only 34, about to be 35, so I'm not old, but I've been doing this since 18, 19, so I feel like I'm old. But I want to make sure everybody's still like getting better because
Mhm.
I know for us, we can't find coaches a lot. Like we're scraping around trying to make sure we find coaches. Like in our building, not a lot of people want to coach anymore. And so whoever does, I want to make sure that they're successful because in this profession, we're just having a hard time. So like for you, why do you feel like they have to be better?
I think part of it is it's a natural progression as you get older. That your life and different things change. Um, but for me, part of it was the people that invested into me, and that's my way of being able to honor the people that invested into me. Like Coach Stig, he didn't have to take this guy and help him develop. And I owe so much of my career to what he did to help me develop as a young coach. And it wasn't just him. There's a lot of other coaches along the way that helped me develop. Um, but as you saw, maybe it was around 2010, maybe before that, is when I thought the profession was changing a little bit. Because the most important thing in college recruiting is always going to be, or college football is going to be recruiting. If
Hmm.
you don't have good players, it doesn't matter if you're a good coach. And so recruiting has always been big, but I thought the emphasis really blew up right about that time. And because of that, I think that people started trending to finding the best recruiter than the best coach. And I think some of the best coaches out there that have been around are really good at teaching, they're really good at coaching, and they're really good at recruiting. There's not a whole lot of them that are out there. But I think a lot of people see the fastest path to success, the whole, and to define the word for success for young coaches means, the emblem that's on their shirt, the amount they're getting paid, whatever it may end up being, that's what they define as success, or what I felt people were defining as a success. And so it became more about, and I get it, but more about the kids you were bringing in than the kids that you were developing. And I thought that, like, you can look at things that happened. This goes back into history. You can look at things that happened 10 years ago and how it impacts you now,
Hmm.
15 years ago and how it impacts you now. And I thought that impact has started to really start to trickle down. Unfortunately, because I also ended up going to a whole lot of jobs because of either things that happened beyond my control or things that happened that happened with me. So I'd been at a bunch of different jobs, and I had noticed that it seemed like every year that the younger coaches weren't maybe as good. And maybe it's just because I was old. Like, they're not as good as I was, but it just felt like the development wasn't there.
Right.
Uh, for the young coaches or them knowing how to develop people or even learning how to work. I mean, whose fault is it if you take a kid out of the wild and he doesn't know how to tie his shoes? It's not his fault. It's just he was never developed. He was never taught how to do things right. And I think that was a lot of it was that, and I was at fault for that because when I was maybe in the middle of my career, I don't know where the end of my career is, but maybe 15 years ago, I didn't want to take the time to develop those guys because I wanted to just get it done right, move on, and not worry about teaching the next guy. Because it took more work. It takes more work for the guy that understands it to teach somebody else and to just do it himself. And
Right.
so that was part of it. Is I think it's not just that; it's just that coaches weren't taking the time to sit down with players, with the young guys, and say, hey, "This is how you need to do it. This is what you need to look at." Being able to bring them in and watch recruiting film with them, being able to bring them in and say, all right, let's watch through this blitz at it. And I'm going to teach you how it is that I look at how we're going to protect the quarterback. And this is a way that my brain thinks, or in short yardage goal line, or any different stuff. It's being able to bring them in and sit them down and spend the time that I don't think a lot of people were spending doing that. And then being able to just mentor them and being able to talk about, what's your work ethic like? And that doesn't mean that you have to come in and you have to be the first one in and the last one out. That doesn't hurt, but you don't have to do that. It's like, how can you be efficient with your time? How can the players see that you're doing what it is? How can you develop relationships with players that's more beyond like the surface, that you know about their family, that you're maybe messaging their parents? But I just saw a void there. And I felt that was something that I needed to do. And then we got a lot of young coaches at NIU, and that part of it's been great. And I tell them when I'm coming in, like, hey, do you want some advice? And usually they say yes. I usually try not to come in and just tell them what it is to do. It's like,
Mhm.
do you want some feedback? Do you want some advice on maybe how I screwed up in the past? And I'll tell them, it's like, it's not that I have all the answers. It's that I've been doing it for 25 years and I've screwed up a lot more than you have. And the only way you learn is by failure. So through my failures, maybe I can teach you something.
One thing you said I think was super important was like the instant gratification type of thing. Like we see it with players, and I experienced it as a young coach too. I feel that we want to be we want the title, right? Like you said, creating titles. You know, we want to be the OC, we want to be the defense coordinator, we want to be the head coach. And I was there. I was 22, 23, became the OC, and I was like, yeah, like here it is. I know everything. And then you crash and burn a little bit. And then I go back to being an O line coach. And at that moment, I was like, I never want to be the guy. I like my little bubble, right? Like my comfort zone is going to be different run scheme, going outside my bubble. My outside the bubble is going to be teaching this kid different way. Maybe not traditional. Maybe it's just the best way to do it. But now I'm back to being the OC, but going about it differently because I had to go. I crash and burned. You know, I thought I knew it all. We were with a program that was 0-9, 0-9. Then I come in, we go 3-6. We're like, oh my God, we're 300% better than what we did. Then the next year we go 0-9 again. And I'm like, well, it's not my fault. Like these plays are awesome. Like the plays work. And then you look back and you're like, well, you didn't practice this. You didn't practice this. You didn't do this. You had two, like, and so now, but then these younger coaches are like almost telling the position coaches or those guys what to do, if that makes sense. Like telling the OC, you should do this. And I quickly learned that's not how you do it. If you have an idea, you go in and you say, hey, what do you think about this? Like there's a certain way to ask, like, hey, let's talk about this, not saying what to do. Whereas I think some young coaches are like, well, I want the keys. And it's like, hey, it's okay to be a position coach because you're just as important as that person calling plays. Because I do it in the summer. We have different guys at different positions on our staff. At the end of each week, I text them, hey, men, thank you so much. It doesn't work without you guys coaching your position groups. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what I have to change. And it's never about like what I did right. It's about you guys. This is you making sure that we're going in the same direction, making sure that they know we're in this and we're going to work together. But I think these younger, like if they don't have that, they want to go as fast as they can. Because on ESPN, what do they see? The Nick Saban contracts and the Dabo Swinney contracts. Which that's not, my wife does that. Why don't you coach college? Look at the money they're making. I'm like, I had to tell her, let's be realistic here. Let me tell you what the real college coaches make. They don't do that. And she goes, really? I'm like, yes, that don't happen as much as you think.
Yeah. and you admire the go-getterness to them to where they want certain things. And that's great. It's just being able to, what's the right way to get it? What's the right way to be able to get there? And I've had some good young coaches in the past that have gone on and had a lot of success. But I think that's the other deal is you look back from a recruiting standpoint. I probably changed the way I recruited, again, maybe 10, 15 years ago as far as the identification part of it. Because I always thought I knew and I went back and I looked at all the traits that I had with really good players that I had in the past. And that was the only thing I was going to look for was those traits. Not necessarily the measurables are easy, but like the certain intangibles that other people don't have. And all the best players I ever had, every single one of them had it. So I changed to how I recruited. And that's a little bit on how I deal with some of the coaches is that, especially when I see certain traits that I know that all right, this guy's got it. Like one of the best ones I had was Jimmy Rogers. He was my GA at FAU. I hated Jimmy in college. Hated him. He was a linebacker, and I hated his guts. And I know he didn't like me, but he worked his butt off. And he came down, and he was the O-line GA. Well, shoot, now he's at Washington State doing a good job. It's because he wanted to work. He wanted to learn. And I think anytime you can find a young coach like that, I probably didn't pour enough into him as far as the thing that he did that was different is he would just bug the hell out of me and keep asking questions until I would answer them. When maybe some of the other coaches are like, well, he ain't answering me, so I'm just going to quit asking him the questions. And so now it's trying to take more time and dig those questions out of people instead.
And here I am asking you a bunch of questions. You're probably like, Steve, what the hell? You're asking.
Oh, I think questions are great. I think questions are great.
Oh, oh my. My wife does to a point, and then she's like, "You're asking too many questions." But she's also 31 weeks pregnant, so I'm putting that into effect. I'm
Oh,
like, I can't
good luck with that one.
It's our first child too, Coach. It's our first.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. It's a boy, and he does not stop moving. She texts me today. It's like fireworks. Your son does not stop moving.
Well, hopefully it's of the three we got. I don't know why, but for some reason, the Lord blessed us with one really late in our life, and He also decided to make him the biggest maniac of all three.
Oh,
Once we got older in our lives, so it was. He gave us the mellow ones early, and then He gave us the crazy one late.
oh, I have a feeling he'll never stop moving because it's just how he is. When we do ultrasounds, we did a growth one yesterday. He's flipping around, doing somersault or whatever, and they're like, he won't stop moving. And we're like, sorry. And the funny thing was, Coach, it's crazy. 31 weeks, he's already 4.5 pounds. Like he's gonna be. I'm 6'5", like 285. Like I know he's gonna be big, but we were freaking out. I'm like, what did we do wrong? And the doctor's like, Steve, you're big and tall. You're like an O lineman. My wife is kind of tall, so they're like, there you go. Like he's gonna be. And I'm like, is he gonna be the next Shaq? Can he please be Shaq? And anyway, that's off topic. One thing interesting is a lot of the stops you made, you've kept saying rebuilding, right? Like wherever you've gone is kind of like rebuilding a program. What's that like? Every single time you go somewhere, it's like, hey, we got to rebuild this thing. We got to start winning. Some people don't want to do that, right? Like they don't have the patience. What goes into rebuilding a program? I have a similar situation. Moved up, like I said, when I was the OC, we had to try to rebuild it. I failed because I was a cocky young guy. The next school I went at, they rebuilt it. Next school I went to, we went 4-5. Most games they won since like 1985. Now the school I'm at now, we went to the playoffs 2 years ago, first time since 2014. Won a playoff game, first playoff game win since 2011. Like it's just been this constant thing, and so I've been around building programs too. So what's that like? Like always going in saying we got to rebuild this thing, and what goes into that?
I think it started. That's when my career started. Was that it was, it's South Dakota State. I mean, people see South Dakota State now as this really, really good FCS program, and they are. And when I started coaching in 1998, we were a 500 program that was playing in Division II, and we did not have the same things they have at South Dakota State now. I mean, our offices were in trailers right next to the facility. Wow. We used to catch mice in the summertime and then kind of lay them out on the floor. I mean, it is nothing the way it is now, and I'm happy for those kids. But and then we built it, and then it was kind of crazy because we went FCS. We actually got better. So that was kind of a rebuild through FCS. And then I think the thing about FAU was I think there's a challenge in there a little bit. And I'd also say that, everybody has an ego. That's the biggest thing to say is, yes, you do have an ego. And then how is it that you're able to not necessarily control it, but understand what your ego is? And if you can go into a place at FAU that had been 1-11 and they can turn it around, it validates you as a football coach. That's the ego part of it.
Yep.
But I think there's also the challenge of it. I mean, my dad and his brothers they grew up on a farm and they rebuild cars. I don't know anything about rebuilding cars. I wish I would have learned. But my deal, he rebuilds cars, and I like to help rebuild football programs. And that's the way FAU was. And then once you see that, and after you've done it a while, there's certain phases that you go through. And then you see that what happens in each single phase. As far as the players fighting back, like Coach Creighton at Eastern Michigan's got the Gandhi quote, where it's like, first they ignore you, then they make fun of you, then they fight you, then you win. I think that's what it is. I may not be correct or not, but it's something along that: ignoring, laughing, fighting against you, and then you win. But that's usually what happens: is that everybody's gonna ignore you, and then they're gonna laugh and say you're never gonna be able to do it. Then they fight back, and then eventually end up winning. And it was the same thing at Southern Miss. And really, what ended up happening at FAU was Jeff Sims was in charge of our recruiting. The whole staff did a great job of recruiting, and we had some really good developers of talent, and we brought in some really good players that made us better. And then it's the same thing happened at Southern Miss. Coach Munkin's a really good football coach. He's really smart. But he'll also tell you, we brought in some really good players that helped us win, and we developed the players that were already there. So I think it's a balance of bringing in players, developing them, and then developing the players you already have. Because there's always been that one player that didn't play before, and everybody thought he was a big bag of crap. And then he gets a new opportunity with a new coach, and all of a sudden he's a really good player. Well, he's been on your roster the whole time. It's just somebody didn't able to get through to him. Garden City was similar deal. Eastern was the first one that I went into that wasn't like that because they just went to a bowl game. Now, Coach Creighton did a great job of rebuilding that program and getting it to where it was. And then he's taken it certain steps from there as well. And so I didn't have to go through a lot of that stuff there. It was a little bit different. It was maybe the recruiting aspect that we maybe needed to work on, and that we did, and we did a good job. Kansas was Kansas. If you know the history of college football, they'd been really good in the mid-2000s. And Coach Miles, his name travels. A lot of the kids, half the kids knew about him, half the kids had no idea who Les Miles was. But and Coach Leipold has done a tremendous job at Kansas. He's done a great job. I would also add that a lot of those players were the players that we had a part in recruiting. Now, whether we developed them worth of crap and he outdeveloped what we could have done, again, I'll give him his credit. He's done a tremendous job there. But that was probably the biggest rebuild because nobody thought that they could ever, because there wasn't any recent history of winning the tradition. And then Troy's got a lot of history and tradition for success. And then at NIU was similar deals. Like when I stepped in at Eastern, is that, Coach Hammett came in here and they had won, but I'm not sure how much he had to be able to win with once he got here. And then he built it up. He won a conference championship. I believe it was in 21, not mistaken, 21, 20. But he's done a good job of building it from a sustainable football program and then also doing really well academically at the same time that I don't think had been done, that they'd have an academic and athletic success at the same time. That was part of his rebuild and being able to get the right people in the program. But I think it's the challenge. I think it's part of the offensive line coach nature too, that you gravitate towards something that is difficult, that you feel you know how to fix. And if you don't know how to fix it, it's kind of the pleasure that goes involved in trying to solve a puzzle and trying to move the pieces and learn and how you can't necessarily go on the internet, and I guess you probably could now, and say, well, how do I fix a guard that can't block a 3 technique? Maybe figure out how to fix a gasket or something like that, but some of the other stuff you may not be able to get.
AI could probably figure it out by now.
Yeah, sure.
Is that the same mentality? Because you said you've lost, like, staffs have been fired. Is that the same mentality you took into that? Because nobody likes to be fired. Nobody likes to say you're not coming back. So mentally, is that the kind of same approach you took? Like, well, got to get back to work. Got to go find a new spot. Like, how do you mentally?
A little bit. And this I learned this from Coach Stig. And there's a lot of young coaches that have never heard this, that there's 2 types of coaches in this world. Those that have been fired and those that will be fired. And then when I first heard that, it's like, I'm never going to be fired. And that eventually ended up happening. So FAU was really the first time I got fired, because FAU was, all right, head coach got released. And actually, I could have stayed at FAU and chose it. And Charlie Partridge came in. And Charlie Partridge is a great football coach as well. I think he's with the Colts now. And then at Southern Miss was where I wasn't allowed to, but I was being released because of something that the head coach had done, a decision by the head coach. And so it didn't really resonate and feel as negative. So really the first time I got fired was Kansas.
Okay.
And, that was actually a relief for me, because that was probably the 2 years. I mean, there were some really good people I met. There's some really good friends I still have that I got to know, and a lot of the players. But that was probably that was the hardest 2 years of coaching I ever had. There's just so many different things. That was a little bit more of a relief, because I felt it was coming, and I knew I needed something different for myself, for my family. We needed something different. So that was the first time. And then the second time was at Troy, when we went 5-7. And initially, I think that part of it is it's I don't think there was really a grieving process or anything like that. It's I mean, crap happens. You got to figure it out and move on to the next
Right.
one. I mean, maybe if you're a single coach or whatever, but when you're a coach that's got a wife and kids, it's like, all right, let's figure this crap out and figure out how I can support my family.
Right.
And I think that it maybe fires you up a little bit to be able to say, all right, let's prove this last staff wrong that said this, that I couldn't do it because of this, or the AD said our staff couldn't do it because of this. Let's try to go here and prove them wrong, and maybe we get a chance to play against them in the future and really prove them wrong.
Right.
But it's part of the, unfortunately, it's part of the process of being a coach. Is that a lot of times, I mean, it's trying to think about other really good coaches that have been fired. There's been some pretty damn good football coaches out there that have gotten fired.
Wasn't Andy Reid fired from the Eagles? Like,
Oh yeah, it's yeah.
And now look what he's done. Like, it happens.
There's a couple pretty good coaches with the Browns at the time they got fired, between Belichick and Saban.
Yeah. It's funny you kept bringing up Kansas. I remember watching those because I was like, oh, Les Miles at Kansas. I remember watching. I like Brent Dearman, so I saw him there. I was like, I gotta watch. So when you bring those up, it's like, oh, I was watching those games, and it was one of those moments where people were like rooting for Kansas, like we want them to be good, to prove that it can do football and basketball. I think you guys started that process because now, like you said, it's got to start somewhere, whether it's good or bad. But now they're starting to do really good things. I'm an Illinois fan. They played Kansas the last 2 years, and you just see it's moving the right direction. But I think you guys probably started that, right?
Well, it's the hardest thing at Kansas was if that would have happened right around now, I think it would have been an easier transition. Because when we got there, it would have taken us, because you can only sign so many guys in the class.
Mm-hmm.
It would have taken us 2 years to be at 85 scholarships, signing the most we could in every class, because they'd taken guys where they had basically blue shirted them, where you're mortgaging their scholarship into the next year is basically what's up.
Yeah.
And so let's say you sign 25 guys, but then you tell 5 other guys that they're going to be blue shirted. So now next year you only got 20 spots. And so and then as you lose people, you can't replace those numbers. And so it would have taken us that long. Now I think that would have been probably a positive for a team like that with the portal, and then not having a limit on how many guys you can sign. I mean, you see teams go out now and they're signing 60 guys in a class.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Kansas was going through at that time. They couldn't sign enough kids to be able to make it right.
Okay.
But the kids that they would have had, they probably, they also wouldn't have been able necessarily to leave with so you can build it. If you got enough time, you can build it up and make it right. Problem is now is if you try to do it right and you build it up, once those kids start playing, then if you don't got the budget to be able to keep them, they're gone. And then it just starts that cycle all over again. So,
well, that was kind of leading to my next thing you talked about, the transfer portal,
mm-hmm.
Like you said, what COVID times is when it was around a little bit, but then it got really exploded with
mm-hmm.
that. And it's just constant changed. Like I've been doing this podcast since 2020, and I've always asked college coaches, and I think every year I get the same answer and different answer because it just constantly keeps changing. Like originally it wasn't the Wild West like we kept seeing on like ESPN, but then I talked to people, yeah, it actually is turned into the Wild West. I would talk to FCS coaches and they're like, it doesn't affect us. We actually go grab the kids that are left over in the portal, so we benefit, and we benefit from getting those high school kids that used to go to the big time schools. But just recently they're like, no, now it's affecting FCS. They're like,
mm-hmm.
our high school class used to be 25, 30 kids. Now it's 15, it's 10. And so it's just constant change. So for like you guys at Northern, or even before you were at Northern, what's going on with this portal? Like what's going on with, like, is it the Wild West? Is there a way to fix it? Like what, I know you guys have to roll with the punches, but it's putting more work on you guys for less pay. Like the constant change, the constant, like we just said earlier, you could be sitting here right now, get a text and say, there's a kid we got to go look at. And you're like, Steve, I got to go. And you got to like hop on it. Right. So like, what's going on with this? Like it was.
Well, I think the unique thing for us at NIU is that I got back into coaching at the most perfect place I could possibly be. And that's because of Coach Hammock and the way that he sees college football. He is dedicated and focused on high school players and then you fill in where it is that maybe your needs are. When you lose a guy to the portal, you take a guy from the portal.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that he sees it, and if you look at like our signing class, at least our committed class now, it's full of like we got a ton of high school kids. Now we got to hold on to them. But even like last year's, a ton of high school kids, and so there's always going to be a focus on high school, and that's usually the cool thing when you go out and you're devoted to high schools. I go into schools now. Before you couldn't get into them because they were so busy, and now it's like they want to bring you donuts because there's nobody coming to see them.
Right.
And you feel bad for the coach because I'll ask them like, "Who's been out?" It's like nobody. You're the first person that's been here. Like you got to be kidding me. You got these kids like they're all going portal. So it's easier. It's not easy. It's easier at NIU because of the way that Coach Hammock sees it. That we're focusing on recruiting the high school kid, developing the high school kid as fast as we possibly can. That's the other thing. I think we develop way better here than anywhere else I've been. He puts a big focus on how we develop intellectually, physically, as a football player. And so we have to develop them faster because we know that we go out and recruit a kid and we spend our time developing him, that somebody's going to come and find us, that they understand the product that comes out of NIU. So they're probably going to come after our kids quite a bit. And we can either bitch and moan about it, or we can just say, hey, you got to go out and you got to develop them even better than and faster than what you did before. But I don't know what to make of the portal because the problem is now that how do you assess a value on the ability of a player?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like we took one offensive lineman out of the portal this year, Aiden Tweedy. And Aiden is also an Illinois guy. So, like, number one, when I started looking through, like, the portal websites or whatever it is, you almost feel a little bit dirty when you're looking through it. But what I was looking for was I was looking for people that had Illinois ties. I was also looking for people that were trying to go up instead of guys that were trying to go down because NIU is different. And the hard way is real. And if they weren't going to fit into our culture of how we do things, if they were used to getting their butts wiped at some other place at a higher level, they were not going to succeed here. And so I was looking for Illinois guys trying to come back home, and we found that in Aiden Tweedy. But the other problem is that, like, we looked at some other players out there in the spring because we graduated 5 senior offensive linemen that had a lot of starts, a lot of really good players that we graduated. But the problem is we look at a kid, and I think you're really looking at your roster. You're looking at 1 through 10. Who's he better than? Is he 6? Is he 7? Is he 5? Well, the guys I was looking at that were maybe 7 or 8, the amount of money those guys were getting offered at other places was like I didn't get it. It was I don't know if it was beer goggles or what it was, but it was a seller's market. I don't know if that's the right way to be able to put it or not, but that the money that was being invested and spent on some of these guys was unbelievable. And some of it was to start at other places. So it's like, all right, we must have a really, really good team here based on if that guy's going to go there to start and he's getting paid that, they must be in a really bad spot. But I think you get that in the MAC. I mean, the MAC is it's a one possession conference, and I think it'll even stay more of a one possession conference because of the good players are now getting poached. You look back in years previous in the MAC, and you might have some teams that make 3 to 4 year runs because those kids weren't leaving. You know, how long is Ben Roethlisberger going to stick around anymore? You know, the really great talent that's come out of the MAC in the years. How much are those guys going to be? Would they have been there back in the day? But I don't know which direction it goes. I think that, and the issue is that nobody that has pull is offering solutions.
Right.
And those that can make the solution, those that can make the change to it, aren't saying nothing.
No. And that was kind of, a couple years ago, culture was like a buzzword, so we kind of stopped using it. It was like the standard. But now with the portal, somebody asked a coach this before. Can you even build a culture now? Because it used to be when you recruited kids, and I'm just making this up just from what I know. Let's say you're at Northern, this is before the portal, and you've been there a while. When you're recruiting people there, look at the culture we built. Look, this is the standard, this, and that's part of your pitch, right? Like, look what we've done here. Now with the portal, if it's just constant change, it seems like more retention. Like you have to recruit them to come there, then recruit to keep them. So then it's like, can you even build the same type of culture that we could 8 years ago, 10 years ago? Like, I still think you can, but it maybe have to be done a little different, I think. But I saw somebody ask a coach, I was like, that's a good question. Like, can coaches still keep developing the culture like they used to be able to do?
Well, I would suggest this, that when, try to be a win guy, not an if guy, when Northern Illinois has a really good year this year, I would suggest that you try to get Coach Hammock on to talk about that. And the reason I say that is because we're a group of five without the giant budget that maybe some
Mhm.
other places are. I think you got a giant budget, you can buy your culture.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you can, like some of these schools, they can buy their culture. And I mean, some people, it's kind of like, I think players are like coaches at the Power Four level. There's a lot of Power Four coaches that don't say a damn thing in the meeting room because they're worried about rocking the boat and losing that salary that they just want to hold on to.
Right.
I think there will be players that will be similar to that. But I believe strong, and maybe it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now when people look back and they look at how people developed a culture and standards in this era of college football. I think a lot of them are going to look back to Northern Illinois and what Coach Hammock is doing. And I think that's, again, why I came to the perfect place, because he gets it. He understands that. But when guys come in, they get indoctrinated into the culture right away. And if they could be a dude, and if they're a dude and they ain't going to go with the culture, then he don't care. I mean,
Right.
it's not that the players love to play for him, because I think he's one of the few people out there in the college coaching profession as a head coach that provides structure, provides holding people accountable. I think kids actually crave that.
Hmm.
They really do. And I think the easiest thing for some coaches to do is not do that and not hold people accountable, because they're trying to appease the person to stay and make them happy and everything else like that. Well, number one, I don't think you garner respect from your players, that player, and I definitely don't think you garner respect from the rest of the team. And I know that Coach has done such a great job of developing the way that things are done here, that you hear talk, it's player led. And
Hmm.
it's the same, like they're not going to go in the locker room and hear something different, because the leadership has been strong throughout the years, and the type of kids he recruits. I mean, Roy Williams is a defensive end that had hardly anything coming out. Now he's one of our leaders. These are defensive linemen I'm talking about. Johnny Williams is the same, coming out of Wisconsin. I mean, there's a lot of our leaders that we have within our group right now weren't the big name guys. They were guys that worked their butt off and stuck it out, that Coach Hammock took a chance on, or maybe didn't take a chance on. Other people thought he took a chance on, when he was one of the few guys that trusted what he saw on film. He trusted his evaluation, and then he developed them, and those players are really appreciative. I'll say one of the coolest things about, we've lost some players to the portal. There's actually been some of those players that we lost to the portal. Number one, they don't necessarily, they love it where they're at. They're getting paid more, but they don't love where they're at. There's been players that have given money back to our program from the money that they've run. I mean,
That's
it's
awesome.
the respect that they have for Coach Hammock and what he's built. And I don't think those were easy decisions. I think he had said at one point, there wasn't one player that went into the portal that didn't come up and talk with Coach Hammock before that decision was made. It wasn't like it was a midnight goodbye. He knew about all of them, and he talked to every single. We had like 4 or 5 of them come back for a spring game, which for me was odd, but
Yeah.
it's unique.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I go by ESPN stuff, but then I get to build these relationships with coaches. I'll text on the side, like, tell me what's really happening. Then I get the real scoop. And like, they can't say it on here, but they'll tell me the real scoop. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This is nuts. Like the lawsuit that came out with tampering. I'm like, oh, this is going to keep happening. So I'm volunteering to be the commissioner and just fix it. Like, I'll fix it right now. Coach, the last thing,
Mhm.
how was that Notre Dame game? How fun was that?
I would say, as an offensive line coach or as a defensive coach, that is a game that you love, and and it was unique. It's people would ask me, it's like, did you know you were going to win? And you can ask my wife. So like, if you're a group of 5, Coach, you're going to play a lot of Power 4 teams.
Yep.
You're going to play the money games. And we were at 6-year-old at the time. It was a flag football game on a Thursday night. And my wife asked, she was like, so what do you think the game's going to be like tomorrow or this weekend? I said, I think we're going to win. He's like, you've never said that before. I said, you've never said you were going to lose. Because, like, we'd be at Southern Miss and we're playing Alabama or Mississippi State or something. And she'd say, how's it going to go? It's like, they're good. We're going to have to play good to have a chance to win. But this one, I thought it was a really good matchup. I thought offensively, I knew it was a good matchup. I didn't know much about the defense, but I thought it was a good matchup. But the way that, so proud of the way that the offensive line played, because they played dominant. That's the way that they were moving and displacing the line of scrimmage consistently, the way that the backs ran, the way that the defense played. It was one of the funnest things that you can do is when you have one of those wins is the chaos when the game begins and how loud it is. And then to be able to walk out and hear silence and people chanting your school's name in the corner of your end zone. But it was the validation for the players and what Coach Hammock has done at NIU was the really cool part of it.
Oh, I was watching that game live, and I don't hate Notre Dame. I'm not one of those people. I just love college football. But I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is awesome. And you have to correct me. There was a drive near the end where it was just constant running the ball and constant getting first downs. And I remember watching Twitter, and they're like, how's the O-line and them just doing this to Notre Dame's defensive line? And I'm watching this, and I'm like, because it looks like they believe they can do it, so they're just doing it, right? And I'm just watching this. I'm like, as a game, it was just an awesome game. And it's just, some people are waiting for Notre Dame to do it. But I'm like, oh, this feels different. Like, you're coaching it, so you're probably not thinking this. But as a fan, you're watching it going, no, wait a minute, something's different here. Like, kind of like the Appalachian and Michigan, like that type of thing. You're just like, something's different here, you know? And it was just awesome. What an awesome game.
The unique thing was Ontario Brown, AB, our starting running back, he didn't play much in the second half because he was injured. Then J.J. Lippy, our starting guard, he got hurt as well. But that's running the ball. Like, if we were trying to throw the ball over the yard, they were pretty good up front. I would rather run against a good defense than throw against a good defense. The other thing that I thought the offensive line did a really good job of is we knew every single one of their blitzes based on the alignment of their defensive tackles. Which hand was down, which hand was up, width of their feet, and they were able to make every single one of those calls. Now, they were still pretty damn good. We had to pick them up.
Right.
But they did a really good job of seeing stuff. So that's like the cool thing of being an O-line coach is that the guys played physical, and they're also being able to be intellectual, be able to see stuff and make the calls. And they won it because they were able to access all that information and play chess and get punched in the face at the same time.
Right. And like you said, with that loud crowd coming raining down on them, people watching are like, well, they paid NIU to come here. This is a win. And then when it doesn't happen, there's a part of me, because I went to Eastern, same thing, is like, see, there's football outside of everything that's on TV. There's other football. I watch MAC action all the time. Like, there's just other good football. And, you know, especially when it's an Illinois team that does it, you're just like, all right, here we go. And a head coach I used to work for is a Notre Dame fan. I'm like, do I text him? No, I'll leave him alone. I'll leave him alone. Because his text back may not be very nice. If I just said, normally I just text, well, and it's not going to.
Well, football is football. I mean, it's I know there's different budgets and different money that goes into it at every level, but when I'm out recruiting kids, I'm like, hey, there's good football at every level, and you just got to figure out which one fits you. Don't worry about the logo. Just make sure you're figuring out what the right fit is.
Right. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking all this time to talk to me. I might be a Northern Illinois fan now. We'll just have to wait.
Awesome.